look, here's all this money being pumped into the economy, basically throughout this century, all the way back to the dot-com crisis in 2000. And I remember thinking to myself, well, all that money had to go somewhere. Where did it go? And the answer is it inflated the stock market. Of course, we had an inflation, but it was there so that all the people whose wealth depends on the stock market, for them, these were not problematic times. They were a good time.
That's absolutely right. And actually, I don't usually put graphs in my books, but I did in this particular book because in the very beginning chapter, there is a graph that shows very specifically how much money flowed into the stock markets and how, yes, those were inflated and no one cared. No one talked about it. No one said, well, gee, they're inflated because the Fed's creating this money. It's going to Wall Street. It's being leveraged. It's going into hedge funds and private equity funds and all these financial players for whom it's very easy to access that money cheaply. And the real economy, on average, since the beginning of the beginning of the 2000s, effectively at most average under 2% growth per year. Whereas the stock markets on any given year average somewhere between 15 and 20%. There were ups and downs during this period, but on average, those are the two figures that we're looking at. So we're looking at a very big multiple of how, yes, that money went into markets versus the real economy, but it's even more than that, Rick. Talk about inflation today. Now that we have real inflation that hurts people's pocketbooks every single day, and much of that has to do with a combination of geopolitics, supply chains. We're looking at a confluence of events that has created a situation where the people in control of the money and the companies in control of the money can even boost prices by higher than they might otherwise be because of those supply issues. And then we have a Fed who comes in and says, we're going to help. We're going to raise rates to ostensibly squash this particular inflation, which is predominantly related to food and fuel and our regulations on our corporations and what they can charge in the process. And we're going to do something about it. But the reality is all they have done is create a situation right now where rents are escalating relative to people's mortgage payments, which means more people are shut out from borrowing money to buy a home. So now we're in a situation where on every side, people are getting hurt by the institutions like the Fed, and also by the supply chains, geopolitics, and again, the leverage of those institutions like Wall Street. Banks just had earnings come out just now, Rick, and they're doing fine. You know why they're doing fine? Because they're charging more interest because they can, because now the Fed has raised rates. So they're raising rates on loans, on everything that they can squeeze out of people. They have not by the same amount, the same proportion, or anything near it, raised, for example, savings rates that people who actually could put money into these banks might receive back from the bank. So they're actually playing what we call on Wall Street the spread between what they're squeezing out of individuals. On the other hand, they're not paying any of that extra interest to people. So they're basically squeezing them on all sides. And I don't think people really understand this enough, because in the media, the story is, and the allowability to the Fed is, hey, they've got this. It's going to cause some pain, as Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says, it's going to cause pain to the economy, but it's going to cause some job losses. It might make things more difficult, but we've got this inflation thing. We're going to fight it. Well, no one at the Fed is afraid they're going to lose their job as a result of this policy, whereas people in the real economy are at risk.
Yeah, it was amazing to watch. It boggles the mind. This Powell talking about pain. It will be pain for the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who lose their job. And it also, I'm an economic historian. The last time we had a bad inflation, we fought it with a wage price freeze. The time before that, when we faced it, we fought it with rationing early in the 40s. That they don't discuss these options, that they don't even explore the social costs and benefits, is a sign that they want nothing to do with any kind of open or honest discussion of what these realities are.